forecast like this is much better. But if it really gets sunny, the first day we came, it was really bad. And we would like to take, if we have time, we'd like to take a little bit walk around the university. So make sure you are protected. All right, ready?
Yep.
Okay, so as I was saying, we'll do a little bit of a track change to start talking about culture. Remember, the objective of dialogues is to talk about content, discuss content, which in our case is climate change in emerging economies, but cultural immersion is very much a part of that. In fact, we might as well do this on campus, unless there is a strong immersion in culture. And from my perspective, I think especially if that culture is embedded within the content, or at least there's some close connection. And in the case of climate, there often is, right? Because of both in the, maybe less so in certain parts of the natural sciences, but when you talk about consequences, policy, impacts, adaptation, mitigation, there is very strong connections. So when we try to understand the culture and belief systems of a place, many things, sort of work in conjunction. So there is the history, there is the religion, there are various historical influences, that work together. There is language, how we express ourselves in language. These are just a few other things. Now, as I was saying, culture can be somewhat individual and, or at least more individualistic and more perspective-based than, let's say, certain aspects about natural sciences or even, social sciences such as economics, where there is a lot of quantitative basis. Culture, we as in the royal we collectively, we haven't gotten to a stage, I don't know if we ever will or should, where it's as quantitative as natural sciences, right? So there will always be an element of individual perspective. So here is mine as we think about Southeast Asia. What fascinates me about Southeast Asia is that there are very few places or regions that at least I have visited, and I have visited a lot of places by now. And I have had colleagues, friends, students, others from across the world. What has struck me here is the syncretic nature. So there is a lot of cultural basis, lot of influences that are very, if you call it indigenous, rooted to the soil here. So it's not that there is a lack of culture here, which is why they have to be syncretic. That's not the case at all. There is a lot of deep-rooted culture here. At the same time, there is this ability to blend. There have been influences here from India. India is so, the Indian subcontinent, so undivided India as it used to be, it is so close. There has been influences from China, again, broadly, civilizationally, India and China. There have been influences from other regions in Southeast Asia, and this is true, by the way, for both Thailand and Indonesia. And there have been more recent years, in the last few centuries, significant influence from the West. And over time, there have been influences from other continents, such as Africa, for example. And somehow there has been this ability to blend these influences in without losing the essence of self, as in this culture, but blending all of this in a syncretic way. So, interestingly, when you hear Orchita speak about the history of this place, culturally, religion, all the influences that blended at various times. And at some point, I told you I wanted to actually visit 3 countries, Thailand, Indonesia, and Cambodia this time, but unfortunately because of various understandable university policies, we couldn't. But religion-wise, if you just take a sort of Western template and say, what is your religion? You have to give us this one religion that we follow. Thailand, majority will say Buddhist. Indonesia, majority will say Muslim. Although in Bali it's majority Hinduism, but in general Indonesia will say Muslim. Jakarta, for example. And Cambodia will say Hindu, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhism, Muslim, etc. But you'll see the commonality and the syncretism that is involved. And there are a lot of Christians also in each of these places. But it's a little bit different, the way these things are viewed. And how, there has been this ability to not just blend, but also, and not just accept, and not just tolerate, but assimilate these in a way which seems to make a lot of sense. Something that I think is relatively unique about this place. Relatively unique. There are a few other places where this has been done. The other thing is, and I'm not sure how much Ruchita will talk about that, is the language. It's fascinating. So you go to, if you think of the language families, language roots, if you think Indo-European, right? So Indo-European language goes all the way from, think Old World now, because when people have moved from, let's say, some places, in West Europe to, let's say, Australia or the US or Americas, those are very recent migrations, but relatively speaking. But think about the Old World, so all the way from the western edges of Europe to the eastern edges of Asia and Indian subcontinent, the family tree, if you go up, just linguistic, does not always have to be genetic, is Indo-European. So all of these languages, right? Which, depending on how you look at it, there are good parts of that, bad parts of that, right? And then there is obviously this huge language family which is more, Sinitic, Chinese, and various others. The languages here are very interesting. In Indonesia, it's Bahasa Indonesia. In Thailand, it's Thai. Read up a little bit about how these languages evolved and how people who carried these languages with them sometimes. Languages are sometimes carried with people, sometimes not, right? One example of languages carried with people or not carried with people, it's usually obvious that, okay, people move and they carry language. So you go from mostly, let's say, Western Europe, maybe mostly, England, and in the US, most people speak English, some form of English, maybe it's a little bit older. So that's more obvious, right? But people going language patterns changing without dominant changes in the people as such, that happen, for example, in modern Turkey, right? The changes in language do not necessarily always correspond to changes in genetics. Think about that in the context of, for example, the Thai language here in Thailand and how these languages evolved in Indonesia. It's fascinating. And then, how these things connect with the culture here, with the ability to assimilate without, like I was saying, without giving up the essence of self. Fascinating. So I think what Rochita will show will take you through some aspect of that. It's hard to look at all aspects. But think about some of these things as she goes through a brief cultural presentation, and then as you go over yours. So she'll also talk about the expectations from you on your presentations. And then as you talk to folks, as you read up the literature, right, read some of them, this is not always obvious when you come as a tourist. So you come and, go and meet folks outside. They will talk about, there's no reason for them. If you ask them, they might, but what I'm saying is there's a reason for them to say, oh, my belief system is this, and because of that I can accept this belief system or not, I can accept that, right? That's something you have to first understand, and then if you talk to people, you probably get a bit more of this, right? A bit more of the essence. There is a need to understand that, but some of that is contained in the history and culture of the place. Rochita, please go ahead.
Okay. Hi. So I don't think my introduction is needed. I think you guys have seen non-human during presentation sessions anyway. So I'll just start with the presentation because Pursuram has already given a great introduction. So I'll just dive right into it. So we'll just go through a brief, like an overview of the history of Thailand, and then towards the end I'll explain to you what you need to do for your individual cultural presentations for Thailand. What is the expectation? What are the guidelines and what are your individual topics? So each of you, since this will be an individual presentation, so each one of you will have distinct topics. So we discuss that right at the end.
While this is going on, and if we are talking about culture, remember Ochita is a very good classical Indian dancer. And who else is a good dancer? Oh, Meher is a Bhangra dancer. So these two I know, but all of you are on the hook to, tell us about your hidden talents.
So we will just get to know where we are. Thailand is the world's 51st largest country and 21st in terms of population. The population density here is 137 people per square kilometer. It is located in the southeast of Asia and its capital is Bangkok. I think Professor Ganguli shared this a little factoid in our WhatsApp group that Bangkok is actually, the actual name of Bangkok is this, which I cannot pronounce. But fun fact, it is recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest name for a place. Other facts about Thailand, Thailand has never been colonized by the European countries, and Thailand shares borders with Myanmar, Laos, Malaysia, and Cambodia. So, Thailand literally means the land of the free, but also Thai, they are a group of people who are known as the Thai people. So Thailand also means the land of Thai people. Originally, Thailand was called Siam, and it is believed that the word was derived. It has Hindu origin from the Sanskrit word Shyam. So Shyam in Sanskrit means dark. Shyam Varna in Sanskrit means dark skin. Okay. In 1939, the name of the country was officially changed. Let us look at the national flag of Thailand. So it has 3 distinct colors, and each of the colors, they impart some meaning to the flag. Red signifies the blood that has been shed for the country for nation. White, it indicates the pureness of Buddhism, and blue signifies royalty of the king. Talking about the people of Thailand, Thailand is a predominantly Buddhist country, so almost 93% of the people, they follow the Buddhist religion, and of course there are other religions as well, like 5.4% are Muslims, there's Christianity and Hindu and other religions. Coming to the ethnic groups, 97.5% of the people belong to the Thai ethnic group, and then there's Burmese and other ethnic groups. Okay. So most of the people in Thailand speak the Thai language, and some people do have English as their second language. This was also a fact that our local guides were talking to us about when we took the walk, if you guys remember. So she was saying that, most of them speak in Thai, but they also they are attempting to learn Mandarin now and English to get better jobs, to communicate well. Now we will go into the prehistoric era for Thailand. Do you know how the ages that defines the prehistoric era. The Stone Age, the Metal Age. So we'll go through those prehistoric the time eras for Thailand. So coming to the early Stone Age, the archaeological artifacts which are most significant, one is the broken skull fragment, which is known as the Lampang Man. The archaeological site from where we find the artifact is in Lampang, hence the Lampang. And the stone tools that were discovered during World War II, they were found at the site in Kanchanaburi, western Thailand. So these are the artifacts. That is the broken, like the front part of the skull. That is the broken skull fragment, and these are the stone tools. So the broken skull fragment is a sign of civilization in the prehistoric era in Thailand. Coming to the new Stone Age, so these are the skulls that are found in the Ban Khao region in Kanchanaburi. That was the archaeological site where these skulls were found. Just look at the two skulls side by side. So the archaeological site, the skulls that were found in the archaeological sites are from the prehistoric era, and these are skulls of Thai people. So there's a resemblance, which is indicative of the fact that there was Thai civilization during this era. And apart from that, during the evidence for agriculture, cultivation were also found due to the kind of tools that were found in the archaeological site and other evidences like they were hunter-gatherers, right? So say hunting tools that were found during the archaeological. Okay. So now we come to the Metal Age, which is the Copper Age.
One aside, she talked about Kanchanaburi. How many of you have heard about the bridge on the River Kwai? Kwai. If you haven't, take a look. It's a very famous book, movie, and that is located in that region.
Okay. So Metal Age is it basically encompasses the bronze, copper, and the iron age. Ban Chiang is a very, very significant archaeological site for the Metal Age specific to Thailand, because many, many artifacts were found in this particular archaeological site. We talked about the next slide. These are the tools, the figure on top, those are bronze spearheads, and the figure that is below, these are iron tools. Okay, now coming to Ban Chiang, which is a very significant archaeological site for this country. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1992, and it is in the Udon Thani province in northeast of Thailand. The figure that you see at the top, these are this is hand painted pottery. Can you see the maze-like design on the pottery in red and white? So this is it's a salient design that was very specific to this era in Thailand. So this is very unique to their culture. And the figure below, these are some bronze bracelets that were also found in the archaeological site. So in Ban Chiang, we find evidence of tools and storage containers, which indicates that the people in this civilization, they were cultivating paddy and storing food for themselves and using rice in a domesticated manner, like for food, etc. So now that we are done with the prehistoric era, we will now move into the significant historical periods in history. We will go through the ancient period, the Sukhothai period, the Ayutthaya period, the Thonburi period, and then we come to the Bangkok period, which is still going on. Okay. So what is ancient period? Like, what do we define as ancient period? This is prior to the arrival of Thai people in Thailand, and during that time, this area was mostly inhabited by the Mon Khmer and the Malay civilizations. Literary sources for this time are less, so most of the information is extracted from archaeological evidence or archaeological artifacts that were found during the time. We will start with the Dwarpati period, which extended from 6th to the 10th century. Dwarpati in Sanskrit, it means, Dwar means gate. So Dwarpati means one which has gates. Okay? So it may be that the time period or the kingdom was known as the Dwarpati kingdom because of the general city planning included a lot of gates just as a part of their design, or it may be because of the ports for shipping which acted as gates. Okay, so due to these reasons that kingdom was known as Dwarpati. This kingdom extended westward till the Tenasserim Yama mountains and southward to the Isthmus of Kra. So the people in the Dwarpati kingdom, they inhabited the Chowphraya valley, which is now known as the central Thailand. The Mon people who originally migrated from the Yangtze Valley in China, they settled down near the Mekong River and eventually formed the Dwarpati kingdom.
Actually, if you go back to that slide. So, couple of things just wanted to mention in terms of the syncretic nature. So, because I know a little bit of Sanskrit and my mother tongue connects, is derived from Sanskrit, there are some things I can see which relate to Sanskrit. Somebody who knows Mandarin may be able to see some connections with the Chinese language. I'm not sure also, that I don't know, but I'm assuming. So, Buri, B-U-R-I. Kanchanaburi, and there are many other places here which talk about, which say this Buri, that Buri. Buri comes from Sanskrit Puri, P-U-R-I, which means town or city. Right? So this has modified, and here it's called Buri. Kanchana means gold or wealth, so it's wealthy city. Kanchanaburi, just wealthy city. And by the way, this entire region, and especially after the Thai people came here, was always known to be very wealthy, full of gold, and that's why it faced a lot of invasions also from surrounding regions. Dwarpati, as she was saying, also comes from a Sanskrit root. Dwar means gate. By the way, that also has a similar, if you go up the language family, door and dwar, door, just the door, right? Also have their cognates. But anyway, that's one. The Chowphraya, that's that river. Any of you went there already? Do you know which river this is? The Chowphraya. She's talking about the valley, but there is a river by that name. This is the watershed of that river you're talking about. That is the river that passes through both Bangkok and Ayutthaya. And we'll take a cruise, right? We'll take an evening cruise on that river. Interestingly, also note that what she's saying is the Yangtze River in China. That's where many of the Thai, the origin. If you look at from where they originated as a people, that's where they originated from. But the language is not necessarily Sinitic per se, the core of the language. So already you are seeing this very interesting blend, civilizational blend, if you will, of people, languages, connections from all over. The other thing is, Ayutthaya and the assumed names of the current set of rulers their name is Rama. They have their own names, but also Rama 1, Rama 2, etc., etc. And Ayutthaya, Rama comes from some Hindu mythology. And Ayutthaya was the mythological, or, depending on your belief system, either the mythological or the real capital of the king Rama. It was called Ayodhya in India, and here it is called Ayutthaya. So again, you see some interesting connections that are, the syncretic nature. Go ahead, proceed.
So the Dwarpati kingdom was constantly dominated politically by the neighboring powers. So in the 10th century, the Burmese conquered the state of Bhatan to its west, and then the Burmese were dominating Dwarpati. During the 11th to the 13th century, the Khmer Empire rose into power in Cambodia. So then this power was dominating Dwarpati. So this was constantly happening politically with the Dwarpati kingdom, and finally during the 13th century, Dwarpati lost its independence and it was absorbed by the Thai Empire altogether. But Dwarpati had very, very significant commercial relations with India and was instrumental in adapting and spreading the customs, traditions, the culture that they learned from the Indian culture. The powers with whom Dwarpati kingdom was struggling, or the powers who were dominating them, Dwarpati kingdom also played a very pivotal role in spreading the Indian culture among them. So, talking about language, there is significant influences of Indian language which can be observed in the Thai language. It is deeply influenced by Sanskrit and Pali languages. These languages were also widely used in Buddhist and Hindu religious texts. So Thailand is a predominantly Buddhist country, right? So you can clearly see the influences of these languages in the religious texts, in the language in general. Now we saw that Dwarpati kingdom lost its independence. We now come to the second part, the Lao and Haripunjai kingdoms. So Lao used to be a part of the Dwarpati kingdom before its downfall, and Haripunjai was established during the 7th century, and it was a center of Buddhist religion, the development of Buddhist religion since the 8th century. So during the 10th and 12th century, there were a lot of political disputes going on between several kingdoms. So what happened during that time is Haripunjai and Lao, these two kingdoms, they formed an alliance. They lost. So after this war, Haripunjai and Lao, they formed an alliance. They lost. But this war, they destroyed most of the community. What happened is this marked the end of an era. So these kingdoms, the Dwarpati kingdom, the Lao kingdom, Haripunjai kingdom, they ended completely, and a new era was ushered when new kingdoms like the Lanna, kingdom, the Ayutthaya kingdom, Sukhothai kingdom. So the new era was ushered with the establishment of these kingdoms. So now we saw that Dwarpati, Lao, Haripunjai, these kingdoms, their era ended. So now let us begin to discuss the new era with the Lanna kingdom. In 1296 AD, that is, can you see the image here to your right? That is the monument of King Mengai. So he conquered Haripunjai kingdom, and he made Chiang Mai the capital. He made Chiang Mai the capital, and Haripunjai, remember we discussed that it was the center for development of Buddhism. So he made Haripunjai the religious center of his kingdom. This came to be known as the Lanna kingdom. the whole. So when Rama the Eighth was shot to death, after that, his brother, who we will he succeeded him as King Rama the Ninth, and he was very popular with the common people. So when we were taking the walk yesterday, Taylor, do you remember?
Yeah, they said that they had.
Can you just like
Yeah. Like I asked with one of our tour guides about.
Do you remember the temple we visited right before we went into Chinatown?
Yes. I asked like why they have the picture of the not performing king. I thought that was very interesting because if it's not the former king, then I would think that would be very common in most countries.
Yeah. So when we went from here, the temple that was very close to our hotel. So do you remember our local guides were telling us that it is a tradition to have a framed picture of the ruling monarch outside educational institutions, temples, hospitals. So we saw, Taylor noticed that in the other temple, the picture, the framed picture, it was that of King Rama the Ninth, not the ruling king, King Rama the Tenth. So that is when our guide, she told us that he was so loved by the common people that it was never, that photo was never removed or replaced with that of his son. Okay, so with that I conclude my part of the presentation. We conclude the historical aspect of the talk, and we move into your presentations, guidelines, and topics. So this is what will happen. We will give you 4 significant time periods or eras in Thai history.